Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you.
Oh,
well,
wow.
What's up?
No, I don't.
Awkward start here. You been enjoying the tournament, man? I know your Vols are the only SEC team that's looking good so far, but
Bama has survived too.
The first weekend of the tournament never disappoints.
Well, I mean, I saw somewhere where I think 13 out of the top 14 KenPom teams have made it to the Sweet 16. Auburn being the only top 14 team not to make it in the group. So it's been chalk to the end. So there were some upsets early on, but the best teams in the country have all made it into the final 16.
I think Yale's getting beat pretty bad right now. So Auburn dropped the ball there.
Hey, Tennessee won in gigantic fashion to win the series against Ole Miss Sunday afternoon. So this was fun, where Dinger Country is in full force to take the series over the Rebs, Georgia. I know you didn't watch here because you refused to go all out for Charlie Condon, the number one overall potential pick in this summer's MLB draft. You won't buy in, Matt Green. What do they have to do? They just swept.
They did sweep Alabama, and they won like a walk-off grand slam, I think, in one of those games.
Got tossed for throwing his helmet before he got to the home plate and got suspended for the next game. It was a wild time. Why aren't you invested, Matt Green? College baseball's fantastic. What are you doing? Get involved.
Doing a lot of things. I only have so much bandwidth for so many sports. But also shout out to Mike White. Georgia's still alive in the NIT, so we might win the whole damn thing. So let's go. We're still playing postseason basketball in Athens.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, Matt Green. Well, on this, after last week we did the top 10 coaches in the sport. This week we are going to do teams, the top 10 most likely to make their first college football playoff in 2024-2025, with the 12-team playoff debuting this year. We have some crossover here between the two, and we also have some that did not make our list. And this was just for the one. And I'm really interested in some of these that you have on here, because it's interesting to think about there's going to be some surprises here, and there's going to be several new faces, I think, making the tournament for the first time in school history. So when we talk about this, Matt Green, I think the obvious one that we both have on this list, and I think probably which is kind of funny to think about in 2024, that I would say this out loud, but in terms of who hasn't made the playoff, who I'm most confident makes the CFP in 2024 or 2025 is Ole Miss. It's weird to be that way in 2024, but that's where I am. I think of all the teams going into this year who have not made the college football playoff, I am most confident that Ole Miss makes their debut there. Are you in an alliance on that front, Matt Green?
They're near the top of my list, but I would not say I'm most confident, just simply because they're coming out of the SEC. Like, I know Ole Miss's schedule is not a gauntlet from what a lot of teams have in the SEC this year, but at the same time, they do have Georgia, they have LSU, they have Oklahoma. Like, I mean, for all that matter, they have to go into the swamp to play Florida. Like, it's not like we expect Florida to be good, but there's just we haven't seen Ole Miss ever play for an SEC championship, right? And that's not what necessarily the benchmark of being a college football playoff team. You could be the third, potentially even the fourth best team in the SEC and get in. And it feels like the stars are aligning that this is going to be Ole Miss's best team. And I don't know how when, at least since that Robert Kimdichie and that group was there in the first time Hugh Freeze was when Hugh Freeze was the head coach. But so I think Ole Miss, things are coming together for them, but it's hard for me to have them as the number one favorite to make their first playoff.
They just killed it in the portal. I mean, you just forget that Walter Nolan's now going to be in that interior. You have obviously Juice Wells right there in the slot. They do a lot of 11 personnel. I just look at this group, and I guess maybe the question is like, okay, well, John Jenkins is now at Ohio State. Like, how much of a drop off does that mean? I don't think it goes that way. I go the alternate way, where this is going to give Jackson Dart more opportunities to light teams up. And I think their passing game is going to be really good this year. I mean, you have Trey Harris, obviously coming back, who's a dynamite receiver. You have Jordan Watkins, who's back. So you have two starting returning guys. Deion Smith's a big transfer target. I'm not as worried that like it's gonna be Ulysses Bentley the fourth, probably as your lead tailback, and it's not as much star power or juice as what Quinchon brought the last 2 years in at Ole Miss. But I just think Ole Miss's offense is going to be really, really good, especially the passing game. And I think the defense takes a step forward with Pete Golding in year 2 here because you just brought in like the front four. I mean, it's going to be really good. You've got just a lot of talent on that front. I think the linebacker spot probably not where you want it to be, but the secondary I think should be fine. I don't know. I just look at Ole Miss and then you look at their schedule that you mentioned. Like they're going to coast into, I think, the LSU game on the road undefeated is my gut there. You get Oklahoma at home, which is good. You go to Arkansas, that's very winnable. You get Georgia at home this year, which is great for you. At Florida, I mean, Mississippi State, Egg Bowl at home to wrap. Like this is not an easy schedule, but in terms of what I think they're going to be, and I think Jackson Dart's going to be in the Heisman conversation all year long, and I think that wide receiver trio is going to be one of the nation's best. I think this Ole Miss team is going to, like, if they don't win 10 games minimum, I think something went really wrong with the Rebs this year. And I just think if you're a 10-win team in the SEC this year, you're going to get into the playoff. Is my gut. Is it's going to be hard for a 10-win team to get left out. So I would be very surprised if Ole Miss is, barring crazy injury luck, I just don't see Ole Miss not making their first playoff berth, which is, hey, a testament to Lane Kiffin and what he's built there last 2 seasons, winning double-digit games both times.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely you would project them to make the playoff right now, and that's more than we usually say for Ole Miss. So it's just we have to keep in mind we're talking about what you just said, like at worst 10-2, and right now the best Lane Kiffin has ever been is 10-2, and that's 10-2 at Ole Miss is big time. Don't get me wrong, but 10-2 should get you in the playoff, I would think, as an SEC team. But you know, we've seen crazier things happen. I think the number one team's got to be Penn State, just because they're the team that's there every year. Like, even if
you
they're
said
not
all
good,
offseason, you're off the Penn State train, Matt Green. This whole offseason has been about Matt Green leaving Penn State behind, and you're putting him in the playoff as the most likely. What's happening?
Because it's not a 4-team playoff anymore. They could still be behind Ohio State and Michigan, or maybe Michigan takes a step back and they're behind Ohio State and Oregon or something. But they go 10-2 just about every year. Like, that's their thing. So you look at Penn State, they're ranked in the top 12. You know, they're going to get the quality loss, like benefit of the doubt. They're probably going to be preseason number 12, and they're going to beat preseason number 9, and they're going to beat all the teams they should beat and probably lose to Ohio State, I don't have the schedule pulled up right in front of me.
Let me tell you, Matt Green, they open at West Virginia. West Virginia's good. They might lose that game out of the gate.
I mean, they could for sure, but I mean, they've played Iowa. You know, they played teams that are like respectable, and they beat everyone else they play. You know, they've beaten the Maryland.
I mean, they're at Wisconsin. They're at USC back to back.
I mean, do we expect USC to be good? Is that a home field advantage?
I'm buying some USC stock. I mean, we'll get to USC on this list because they're not on my list for this year. But they had I don't know if you saw what they did today. They're now in the top 5 in 2025 recruiting. They added 2 big time defensive linemen, and then they added someone else. Was it a corner or safety? They added somebody else who was also a 5-star. But they've been Lincoln Riley and company, and I love the D'Anton Lynn hire, which is part of it. I think their defense is going to be pretty solid. I think they're going to be better than they've ever been under Lincoln Riley.
I did have some dog bites if we want to get to it at the end of our list.
Okay. I
can touch on that a little more.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I think Penn State, like, the schedule looks like 9-3, 8-4 to me. We have to see Drew Aller put it together this year. New offensive coordinator. We'll see what that means for Penn State. And like I said, I'm not against Penn State. I think James Franklin's an underrated coach. I still think they're in a really good spot. I also just think the conference is better. Like Oregon, I don't think the Big Ten is going to get as many teams as the SEC is at large wise. And I just look at Oregon, who I think is going to be better than them. I think Ohio State's going to be better than them. And I think Michigan's going to be better than them. And I don't see a path for this year. Penn
That
State,
doesn't
like
100%. They don't play Michigan though, right?
no, they do not.
So that doesn't necessarily rule them out. Is the only
No,
thing. Like we could see some 9-3 be ranked 11th or 12th and get into the playoff. Like I can't rule it out. Like I'm in no way saying Penn State improves next year. They lost a lot on that defense too, but I think year after year we kind of expect just a certain level of defense on Penn State. But you look at what they are, like what you're saying, Drew Allen taking that next step, like that's what needs to happen for them to be a semifinalist, to be a top 5 team, to be a top 4 team. Like if they just keep doing what they're doing, they've been a top 10, top 12 team plenty of times.
they were 75th in yards per play last year.
Yeah, I mean they're flawed. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not picking. That's why I'm against this 12-team expansion. I don't think this team belongs to be playing for a national championship. But I think at the end of the day, they go 9-3, 10-2 with their good Big Ten schedule. Because like you said, if they do go 9-3, they got a couple good wins. Maybe they do win at USC. Maybe they do. Who is the other one you said at USC and at who back to back?
Wisconsin.
At Wisconsin, like maybe they do get get up there in the top 5, top 6 by the time they played Ohio State, and that brings them back down. And then you look up at the end of the season and they're 10-2. Like that's just what happens to Penn State a lot. So we talked about it. Like if there was a 12-team format over the last decade, like Penn State would have been the number 1 beneficiary of that. And Ole Miss was actually surprisingly high up there too. But I think Penn State has got to be the number 1 team for this year.
You're wild.
In terms of a team that never made the 4-team playoff, of course, with that prerequisite.
I don't think Penn State's making the playoff, and I don't think I think that's pretty low. I'd be very surprised if Penn State makes the playoff this year. I cannot believe after you just doubting them, kicking them to the curb.
I'm not picking them to win the Big Ten.
This is unbelievable. I can't believe you did this. Everything that Matt said about Penn State over the last month, just thrown out the window. He's all the way back in now. It's ridiculous. Matt Green on this podcast. Like we have the receipts, sir. Just don't act like you're going to quit Penn State because Matt Green's never quitting Penn State on this very program.
This is just blasphemous right now.
Somebody we both have on the list though, Tennessee, who I think the path similar to what Ole Miss is doing, Matt Green. When I throw out Tennessee as a top 10 most likely team to make their first college football playoff in 2024, what say you?
I'd say I don't have them in my top 10. I think Tennessee's path to the top 10, to the top 12, I should say, is just a lot more difficult. Like I think Tennessee, if you're ranking the best teams in 2024 that never made the 14 playoff, like I think Tennessee could be up there. But for what it takes, like we're talking about Ole Miss, a second ago. Like it feels like there's kind of a big 3, maybe a big 4 going into the SEC, and I'm not even including Alabama in that. Like with Georgia, Texas, I would say LSU and Ole Miss kind of feel like they're a little bit above everybody else. Alabama's got a lot of question marks, but it's still Alabama. That's 5th, and then Tennessee, I guess, coming in at 6th. So that right there, the climate that Tennessee essentially will have to get through to get to the playoff. I just think a lot of these smaller conference teams, because we know that 4th conference champion, right? It was the top 5. No, five conference champions now, right?
Yeah, 5 plus 1.
So we know that one of those G5 schools is going to have a much better shot than someone like Tennessee that's going to have to get through Georgia, that's going to have to get through Alabama and the rest of that SEC schedule. They go at Oklahoma this year?
They are at Oklahoma. I think that's one of the biggest swing games for them. Obviously, Heupel will be extremely motivated for that when they play in NC State in week 2 in a neutral site game. I think that'll be stinky important. But you get Florida and Alabama back-to-back, but they're both at home. So Tennessee, like I've mentioned before, Tennessee has lost 1 home game in the last 2 years, and it was at home this past ending against Georgia. Heupel has not lost at home very often. It's minuscule. You can count it on one hand going into year 4.
Is it only 2 losses since 2021, with Georgia being the only 2? Or did they lose some early ones in 2021? Put you on the spot.
They lost to Pitt at home early in 2021.
Okay.
They lost to Pitt at home, and then they lost another one. Ole Miss at home They lost to Ole Miss at home. With
is that the
mustard? mustard? Yeah, that was the mustard game. So they
Yeah.
lost that one at home too.
Gotcha. Okay.
So since 2022 on, I mean, it's been not just chalk, Tennessee winning at home, but it's definitely it matters. The home atmosphere and I think the style that Heupel plays. I just think Nico year 2. I think this will be big for Nico. I think there's a lot early returns on the receiving core is strong. There's a lot of competition. I would buy some Dante Thornton stock in year 2 in this offense. I think he's more comfortable. I think he's going to shine. I think the tight end combo of Holden Stays, the Notre Dame transfer, and Ethan Davis is going to be really solid. The offensive line, you have Lance Hurd coming in, former 5-star offensive tackle at the left spot. You have John Campbell returning. You have a bunch of older vets on the offensive line front. I like the schedule. The schedule screams 10-2. There's a reason that it's at 9.5 right now. They have the best defensive line in the country with James Pierce leading the way. That's going to be huge. They're going to get after the passer. I think they're going to. I mean, they have the best They have the best edge rusher in the conference, and we'll see what the rest of it shakes out. But I mean, Amari Thomas and Omar Norman-Lott and Bryson Eason and Tyree West and Joshua Josephs. This is an extremely experienced, strong group on the front seven for Tennessee. But Chris Brazzell, I think this offense, I think you're going to see a lot more passing, a lot more downfield stuff, a lot more of what we saw in 2022. And I mean, Nico, the reason you're seeing him as a early Heisman favorite, and part of that is like quarterback play matters so much in this sport that if Nico is a Heisman type guy right away for Tennessee, then look, I mean, Tennessee's going to be right there in the playoff conversation. And part of what the committee is going to look at is, yeah, let's get Nico Iamaleava in this fun Tennessee offense in the playoff. Like, let's find a way to get this
That's
fan
not
base.
how the decisions are being made.
It's thought about.
The resume. It's going to be
Well,
all
no, Jordan
that.
Travis didn't. It's not just the resume. We saw that. I mean, optics matter. Like quarterback play matters.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like if you are still thinking about the product, they absolutely are clearly still thinking about what the on-screen product is going to look like in these college football playoff games. So I just think
let's
Tennessee,
let Nico start like one SEC game before we're talking about him being like a guy that the TV producers just have to put on their screen.
I mean, he was the number 1 overall recruit in his class, Matt Green. I mean, he's the biggest Tennessee recruit since Peyton Manning.
Right? We've seen guys come in and just be okay. Like DJ Uiagalelei was super big time, and he was fine.
Different
like,
offense. Heupel, I think Heupel deserves the benefit of the doubt here.
I mean, hey, he could be a star, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I just don't know how you don't have him. Like I didn't do my list in order in terms of most likely, but I think the path is actually pretty clear for Tennessee to get 10 wins and to sneak their way into to the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, they definitely could. I think their path is a little more difficult than someone to segue in the Big 12 like the Utah Utes, because Utah feels like the clear favorite to win that conference. And the winner of the Big 12 is going to get into the playoff. They don't have to play Georgia. They don't have to play Alabama. They don't have to go to the Swamp. Or is Tennessee going? No, they're coming to. It's not relevant.
Well, you look at Utah, Florida's at Tennessee this year.
Yeah. I thought about that right after I said it. Utah has basically just been that just kind of blue collar team, just what to expect day in and day out. And they've beaten a lot of talented teams. They've won the Pac-12 multiple times. And I think the Pac-12, in terms of just kind of high end talent, it's got more than the Big 12 has had in recent years. Like you have the USCs, you have the Oregons that get big time players. Like and Utah's still beating those teams in conference championships. So I think they go to the Big 12 and they might be one of the most talented teams, which is something they're not used to. And they're just going to give you that, just that steady performance that they always do. They just always have a solid defense. Cam Rising playing his 7th year of college football, I think. And I think they should just be one of the better teams in the Big 12. I think they could, if they go 10-2, I mean, they can still and win the Big 12. I mean, they're an automatic qualifier, right? So I think they're definitely they're up there with like Penn State as I think being one of the bigger beneficiaries of the 12 team format, and obviously the realignment.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Matt Green, without looking, who would you guess? How can I frame this? So, scoring defense last year. Where would Utah have sat if they played in the Big 12 with the current Big 12 members last year? If they played in the Big 12.
Oh, among the conference?
Mhm.
Probably first.
First. They would have had the best defense in the conference.
Playing against much better offenses.
Yeah. I think they're going to do really well. I think they're going to be a high floor team. I 100% agree with you. Their schedule is kind of like the back end's sneaky tough. Like at Colorado late could get weird. Iowa State's always going to be frisky, and then at UCF to close. Nothing says rivalry week like Utah going to UCF to close their college football season. What are we doing? Why are we doing BYU?
About that Utah UCF rivalry? That goes way back. You must not be a diehard.
I do love the Utah pick though. I feel like they might be number one on my list. Like I said, I didn't do it in order. I have Ole Miss. I don't know. Who would you be more surprised of if they didn't make it? Ole Miss or Utah?
I would be more surprised if Utah didn't make it, just because I won't be surprised if you look up and one of these teams on Ole Miss's schedule like is a lot better than you thought, because it's the SEC, and that's just every year their schedule isn't the toughest, like we were saying, but I think Utah's road is just going to be a lot easier.
Yeah,
and I mean,
I still lean Ole Miss just because I don't think the margin of error is as strong. Do you know what I mean? Like Ole Miss can slip up a few times and still find their way into the college football playoff. What I worry about with Utah, and really with any Big 12 school right now, is there's just a very thin margin for error. Like Utah's got to win the conference, I think.
No, you got the automatic bid.
No, what I'm saying is that's what I'm saying. They have to get it. Ole Miss doesn't have to worry about winning the conference, and they're fine.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, there's a good chance that a 10-2 Big 12 team, like, I mean, look at we saw like 2 years ago Baylor and Oklahoma State playing as like number 6 and like number 8 for the conference championship. So I mean, this isn't like TCU obviously just played for a national championship.
Yeah.
So it's not like Texas and Oklahoma were just running that conference like every single season, you know?
Right.
So there is still a chance. Oklahoma State is kind of, I don't know what's happened to them the last couple years, but I mean, they're like right there in terms of a team that like just the new formula gives them a lot better chance than maybe some of these blue bloods, because they're playing in a kind of a watered down conference now.
That's fair. Matt Green, I think we differ here. Speaking of the SEC, I have Texas A&M on my list, and you do not. Why do you not have Texas A&M as one of your 12 most likely to make their first appearance this year?
That's true. I didn't even consider Texas A&M. I guess just year one after firing Jimbo, there's a lot of portal movement. I mean, I like Mike Elko a lot. Like, I'm a big fan of that hire, but I don't know. I feel like A&M just felt like a mess, kind of, and maybe it's just a matter of a new guy gets in there, and they're one of those, like, it's not really as a rebuild. Like, it's just someone needs to get them a course correction. But I think I'm not buying A&M necessarily year one of Elko, but I mean, they could be a good team, and they by the year end. But I mean, like we were just talking about, Tennessee, I'm thinking preseason like the 6th best team in the SEC. Like,
I think you're better than that.
I mean, I just ran through it though, right? Like, you got Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama.
I think Tennessee is preseason better than Alabama right now.
Well, regardless of if you put them top 6, that top 6 right there, like, that does not include A&M. So they get set the 7th, 8th, 9th best team. You could be a good team, win 8 games in this conference. That's conference schedule's got a lot tougher when you added Texas and Oklahoma to the mix, but that doesn't make you a college football playoff team.
No, and I think part of it is, look, the talent's still there. People looked at like Evan Stewart moving on, stuff like that, but like, this is still an extremely talented team. They're still going to be right there on the blue chip ratio for this group. You lose Walter Nolan, you lose some big names, but there's still a lot of talent. Connor Wegman, former 5-star quarterback, he looked good before he got injured. There's all kinds of opportunity there. Colin Klein, I think, was a sneaky great offensive coordinator hire, bringing him in from from Kansas State. I think he'll be good right away for them. The defense was already good. So Mike Elko is taking over a defense that, if you look right now, they were 7th in the country in home scoring defense. Texas A&M, we make jokes about the Texas A&M fans, whatever. It's an extremely tough place to play. and it's hard. Their defense is for real. They get Notre Dame at home to open the year. That's going to be a huge game for their narrative, for building momentum for their season. Like, we'll learn a lot about A&M and what they can be right out of the gate. They go to Florida. I mean, that's very winnable. You get Arkansas at home, obviously. Mizzou at home, who could be a top 10 team. I think that's great if you're A&M. You get Mizzou at home. Like, the fact that they get Mizzou at home, LSU at home, and Texas at home this year is huge. Like, there's a path to A&M.
And
The reason
Notre Dame, what a home schedule.
I know, but like, that's an all-time great. I mean, Georgia, is it this year that y'all are excited about your home schedule, or is it next year?
No, it'll be 2025.
Yeah, it's a good one, I think. Georgia fans are pretty
And
excited
I'm not
about
sure off the top of my head who's at a conference either. So there could be a big non-conference game in there too.
There you go. But I just look at it and I'm like, I think there's a path, very much for A&M to sneak in as a 9-3, 10-2 type team with their schedule. They get a lot of 50-50 games at home, and I just think it's a sneaky place to play, and I think that defense is going to be top 15-ish scoring defense, and I think the offense is going to be improved than what we saw last year, and I think I'm still pretty high on Connor Wegman, so I would not sell any A&M stock, and I would not be surprised if they're floating around that conversation late in the year.
No, I think that's fair. I think that they definitely have a lot of talent, but it'll be a matter of getting through the SEC, like we talked about. Also on Georgia's 2025 schedule. So I don't know if everybody's heard, but they've said, I don't know if is that official that they're going to have the same schedule in the SEC as 2024 as 2025. I guess probably because in 2026 they're going to add Clemson, and the whole college football world's going to go up. And
well, I think they're safeguarded. They just know they're expecting more change, so they're just
all
like,
these. ACC is going to do whatever. It's going to be madness. So Georgia will have Texas. Who else? Alabama and Ole Miss all at home that season, and they're also going to the Rose Bowl to UCLA that year as well. So that's already shaping up to, and obviously Knoxville. So yeah, that'll be a good one. Go at Auburn, at Tennessee, and to the Rose Bowl.
No, 100%.
I'll be surprised just because of such good memories that Georgia fans, make a journey out to the Rose Bowl.
There you go. I saw some Georgia fans who weren't like all enthused, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, yeah, that'll be fun. Like, just enjoy it. Like,
enthused about what?
Like making
the
that
same
trip.
Schedule?
No, going to the Rose Bowl for that game.
For Oklahoma or for UCLA?
UCLA.
Oh, I mean, it's not really like a big game, but I would just imagine Georgia travels. So I would just imagine with how fun it's obviously not going to be as fun as the 2017 Rose Bowl.
But don't overthink it. It's the Rose Bowl. It's maybe the best stadium in college football. Just
excuse to go to California.
Something that's not on my list that is on your list. USC, Matt Green. Why do you have USC as a team that you think could make the playoff this season in their inaugural foray into the Big Ten Conference?
To be fair, they were on my 12. They were number 12 on my list. So they were almost an honorable mention, if you will. But I mean, I think it's just because they've never made the college football playoff. So we're working with a certain formula here. And who knows? Lincoln Riley could come in here, could be like Urban Meyer, like showing up to the SEC, hit him with an offense he'd never seen before, and he run through that offense. Turns out they're not playing good defense in the Big Ten. It's just a bunch of terrible offenses. And Oregon and USC come roll through this conference are the best two teams in the league. Who knows? Anything could happen. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. I think USC is just kind of a dark horse that I threw in there at the end.
Their schedule's rough, man, out of the gate. Like, it's one of those where it's like, I think their season might, like, in terms of playoff odds, I think it's out of the question because I think it gets better as the season goes on. But I mean, they open with LSU at home. I mean, good luck. You have to go to the Big House as your first Big Ten game, week 3. You get Wisconsin at home. That'll be close. At Minnesota in early October. Penn State at home. That'll be close. You go to Washington, tough place to play, and then you finish your year with Notre Dame. I just don't see it. I just see this as a 9-3, 8-4. Like, I think they're recruiting really well. I like the D'Anton Lynn hire as the new defensive coordinator for USC. I think USC is trending in the right direction. I just think in 2024, I would be very surprised post Caleb Williams with their quarterback room right now. in that schedule, I don't see it. I don't see you. I think USC's improved. I think they'll surprise people with where they finish ultimately in the Big Ten in year one. But I don't think Lincoln Riley's bunch I think they top out at 9-3, and I don't think they can make the playoff.
Keep in mind, LSU Tigers haven't exactly taken care of business at a conference in recent years. You know, they lost to UCLA, they lost to Florida State last year. So I don't, I think LSU is going to be better than USC next year. But yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I'm not buying the USC stock, but I'm just throwing them out there as in terms of teams that have never made a college football playoff. I think they're in the conversation.
I think next year might be like I would lean more into it, but this year,
what are the odds? Oh, man, I mean, blanking on this guy who that started the bowl game. What was his name?
Oh, it's Moses. What was?
But I mean, he looked good in the bowl game, and I mean, what are the odds that he turns into a damn Heisman Trophy finalist? Because every quarterback that starts for Lincoln Riley turns into a Heisman finalist, and most of them win the job.
What's his name off the top of my head? Why am I blanking? It's like it's gonna drive me nuts. This is gonna drive me nuts. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. This is gonna because it's like he's Miller Moss. That's it. I was gonna say Moses Miller. Miller Moss. Yeah, he was solid, but I don't even know if he. I mean, we'll see because they brought in. That's his name, Jaden Maeva. Was Maeva the one who almost transferred to Georgia and then changed his mind and went to USC instead?
Oh, that's right.
Was that who that was?
Where was he
UNLV
transferring from? That's right.
Was he the one?
Yeah,
am I misremembering that, or was he at Georgia?
Yeah, it was
for
like a
second?
day.
Yeah,
I think you are right about that.
Okay, so we'll see who's the starter, but I mean, either it's like your point's well taken. That I mean, just bet on whoever's at quarterback under Lincoln Riley. He's gonna be fine.
I do think the offensive angle is something to watch because I said that kind of sarcastically, but I do think the Big Ten offenses have been awful. Like I think Ohio State is still going to have a big time offense. They're kind of the exception, but we've seen some really bad offensive play in that conference, and we've seen some really good defensive play. But you also saw a Tennessee offense that struggled throughout the season, and Nico was not playing the whole season, which is a whole nother topic we're not going to get into right now. But that's a guy making one of his first career start, right? Against an Iowa team that had this great defense all year, and they absolutely torched them. So you saw Penn State, a terrible offense for them against good teams, absolutely destroy Iowa's defense. So I think there is something to like the defensive stats in the Big Ten being like so good that part of it is some offensive ineptitude. So I think that is an angle that Oregon and USC could come in and win with offense, maybe in year one.
Yes. So we'll see. I like you said, I'm here for where they're going and where they can ultimately be. And like I said, they're torching the recruiting trail right now. So keep an eye on USC this summer. One team that I think is gonna be mad that we're disrespecting here, and we're not, because I think we're both pretty high on them and gave them their flowers after last year. I think Mizzou has to be on this list, right? Like Mizzou has to be on both of our lists. So what would you say about Mizzou's CFP chances in 2024, Matt Green?
Well, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I feel the same way I kind of do about Missouri as I do Tennessee, except for I kind of think things are like a little bit, more aligned for Missouri than Tennessee. Like obviously if Nico becomes a star, then, Tennessee, they could go through the roof. But I mean, Missouri hasn't won 10 games in a decade since before 2023. And they haven't finished top 10 in a decade before 2023. So the odds of Missouri doing it again, it's hard to bet on it, I think they do have a really good quarterback. I think they do have really good weapons out wide. I think their defense was pretty solid, but obviously they're losing Cody Schrader, and he was like the best running back in the SEC last year. He kind of carried them the second half of the season. So and when you saw him win a game, and obviously wins are wins. Like I'm not here to like dissect how teams won games and things like that, but like they did have to escape a team like Florida, late in the season, like it was a really bad SEC team a year ago. And obviously they won the game, but there's just there's so little margin for error, and it's hard to predict. Like I was just talking about those top 5, 6, 7 teams in the SEC. Like Missouri, are they going to be the third, fourth best team in the SEC? Because I don't see the SEC, as great as it is, I don't see the SEC getting 5 teams in. Do you?
It's hard to say because we haven't seen anything yet. Like, I don't know what the committee's going to, like, we're going to learn a lot after this first iteration before it goes to 14 in a couple of years. But, like, I would lean the SEC is going to get the most. Like, I think I would be very surprised I think 5 feels about right is probably the max. I think if you're that 5th team, you'd feel better about being the 4th team, obviously. But I do think you'll be right there. But I also just think Mizzou is in less of a Tennessee mode. I think they're more in the Ole Miss mode, where I think their schedule it screams 10-2. Like Mizzou they avoid Tennessee this year in a rematch.
No
Because I
Georgia,
mean,
right?
they missed Georgia too. Yes, they missed them both. So that's huge for them. That's potentially two the best in the conference. They miss LSU, who could be right there among the best of the conference. They'll coast. I think at A&M early October will be a big test for them. But outside of that, you get Auburn at home, you get Oklahoma at home, at Alabama. We'll see what Alabama looks like. That's always tough to win. Probably a loss there. But I mean, if you can survive with just a loss at A&M and a loss at Bama, I think you're looking like I would think you'll be favored in every other game to get to 10-2, and I think they'll be right there. So I don't know. I think Mizzou is going to be in that conversation. I don't think they can win the title. I do love what they've done in the recruiting trail. I think they've done well in the portal. They lose their elite defensive coordinator, though, to LSU in this cycle. So we'll see if the defense is good without Baker going into next year. But Brady Cook, I mean, he's a winner. He's been around for a while. Luther Burden's obviously one of the best receivers in the conference. I think they'll probably end up throwing a little bit more. Mizzou's going to be good. Like Mizzou in terms of like staying power and stuff like that. Like with this schedule and what they're bringing back and what they've kind of established, I think Kirby Moore has been an elite offensive play caller since coming over to Columbia. I think Mizzou's gonna be really good, but they just can't get chopped up with a bad one. They have a very thin margin, right? Like they cannot go 9-3 and make the playoff. So I just don't think they're gonna win at A&M or Bama. So you just can't drop one of those gimmies. So I'm very curious to see how Mizzou handles a lot of those gimmies, like the home game against Auburn, because I think Auburn's gonna be better this year. Can they win that one?
If you break it down like that, like if they go 10-2 with those losses, I'm not sure how good their resume is at the end of the day either. Like because they don't have the strongest schedule in the SEC next year, but we'll see. I mean, Luther Burden is probably the best receiver in America, honestly. Like he's a stud. So, I mean, you look at last year's final college football rankings, Bama was 4, Georgia was 6, Missouri was 9, Ole Miss 11, and then LSU LSU was the 5th one at 13. So Ole Miss at 11 would have been the 4th team. And if you get in another conference champion, that knocks him to 12. ACC champion. Who's the ACC champion?
Last year?
Is it Louisville? No,
Florida State won last year.
What am I thinking? Oh yeah, Florida State's up there. So brain fart real quick. So yeah, so I guess Ole Miss would have been the 4th SEC team. They would have been 12th. It would have just been like, I guess Liberty that would have jumped in there into the top 12. Or I guess Notre Dame. How does Notre Dame work in all of this? Are they a G5? Or do they don't count as like
I don't think they can host, right? Like they don't get a conference title host. I think they get one of the at large.
So they can't be an automatic qualifier. They can only be an at large.
I think so.
Okay. That would be the ultimate loophole for the G5 to keep them out. Like, Notre Dame.
Oh my god!
You guys. Sorry.
I don't think they can do that because I think it's still I think
you're right. I think it's 5 conference champions, and then so Notre Dame wouldn't be in. So last year would have seen 4 SEC teams.
Matt Green, another one here. As we get the final 2 here that we have, and then we'll run through some of the fun ones, kind of the G5s that I think are not even G5, but some lower level ACC schools and stuff like that we have on here. I have Miami and you have Miami. I was surprised you did it, Matt Green. People aren't going to like it. People are going to push back against some Miami hype. Cam Ward, I think, was a sneaky big late cycle win for the Canes. I think, I mean, they're right now my preseason. We were talking about betting odds and looking at their over-unders and stuff a few weeks back with the ACC. I think Florida State takes a step back. So wait and see with Clemson, but I think they're going to be talent-wise, like Clemson and Miami are going to be right there in the same tier. I think it's open for Miami to make a big run and to get that 10-2, 11-1 type run for the Canes. So I think college football playoff is a fair expectation or reasonable expectation, I think, for Miami fans going into this year. What say you?
No, I think so. I mean, it's a different the conversation's just changed completely. You know, like when I'm bringing up Penn State, like I'm not hopping back on the bandwagon or anything. It's just the environment has changed. So do I think Mario Cristobal is now like a top 10 coach in the sport or anything? Like, no. Like, is there a chance they underachieve and still make the college football playoff? Like, absolutely. Like, this team could mess around and lose like twice.
They could lose to Florida to open the year on the road.
Yeah, maybe lose 3 times, but win the conference championship game or something like that, especially if you have the one at a conference loss. Like, so I think the ACC champion, also Clemson and FSU are obviously excluded from this since they've made the playoff before. But yeah, I think Miami is just, I think things are coming together, and Cam Ward, you know, I'm not the biggest Cam Ward fan. Like, I don't think he's like a superstar, but I mean, you look up at the ACC and like, I don't know that there's a better quarterback in the conference than him. So it might be an indictment on the conference. It could be because he's a really good player, but I think Miami, a lot of things are coming together. Like, this team, they weren't terrible a year ago. Obviously that Georgia Tech loss is what everyone kind of remembers, but I mean, what did they win 8-9 games a year ago? Even with that bad loss that honestly should have been a win. Obviously you can't, there's no should be's, but I mean, Miami was, they're not a terrible team. You see their fans, some of these photos of their fans and the empty looking stadiums, like that never looks good, but they're not what Miami once was. But I mean, that doesn't mean they can't be, the best team in the ACC next year.
No, I mean, I'm projecting it. And like this schedule, Matt Green, I think they'll be favored in every single game next year. Looking at it, like I think they're going to be, you get Florida State at home. The only toss-up where I don't think they might not be favored is at Louisville in mid-October. And I mean, it's not great that they get Louisville and Florida State back-to-back with no bye in between, but this schedule is just nice for the Canes. Like, I think the biggest thing to me, which is kind of funny because I don't, like you and I with where we think Florida is going to be, at Florida is not a cakewalk, like to open the year. Like, I don't think we can pencil that one in as like Miami should win that game. I think that might be the tell. Like, if they get through that and just it's not weird and they just take care of business against a team that they're better than on the road in the swamp, then I think you feel pretty good at what kind of position that puts you in for the rest of the way. But I think the sky's the limit because I think Cam Ward could be a Heisman guy this year. I think their offense is going to be top 10 in scoring this fall. And I think there's a lot of talent on this team. Like Miami, I'm buying a lot of Kane stock right now, Matt Green.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, like they're not going in like Arkansas went into the swamp, like when they've like had a couple losses, like fans have been dejected the season and going how they want. Like that week 1, while the sky is still the limit, they're gonna bring it in the swamp.
No, 100%. Let's do as we wrap up here, Matt Green. Let's do our fun ones. Give me some of your fun CFP ones that you have as like dark horses that you think can make their first playoff.
Well, like I said, when we're talking about Miami, like I think Clemson should be better maybe than they were a year ago. I don't know that. Like I was really high on them and what Garrett Riley was going to do to their offense. And, maybe year 2, we do see that offense transform. We see Cade Klubnik live up to that, what he was supposed to be coming out of high school. But I think the ACC feels a little open. I think that's part of the reason Miami is getting some conference championship love. And I think, like we talked about with Louisville a year ago, with their schedule, that was going to go a long way in helping them out. That's the Syracuse Orange this year. Like their schedule is very, very friendly, and they do avoid all the big boys in the ACC. I mean, if they somehow go through that regular season schedule and go like 11-1 or something and lose an ACC championship, like that's a potential college football playoff team right there. I'm not sure they're one of the best 12 teams. I don't think they probably, under that scenario, deserve a chance to play for a title. But this is the landscape now. This is where we are. And Syracuse, they're improved. I think in year one under Fran Brown, they've made some moves in the portal. So like Kyle McCord, we talk a lot about Kyle McCord, but that's because Ohio State was just producing All-Americans, first-round picks year after year after year, and Kyle McCord wasn't that. But he goes to Syracuse, and he's the best quarterback they've had in a few years. So I think Syracuse is definitely a dark horse in the ACC next year.
I don't hate it. That's asking a lot, man. Year one for Fran Brown at Syracuse. I mean, Kyle McCord's putting a lot on him. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not there. I think it's a good hire. I think Fran will do a good job in Syracuse, but man, that's a lot on.
And that would
on
be
the
a big
Orangemen.
indictment on the ACC more than anything. Like and really their schedule is the biggest player in that. So I'm not saying to go out there and put your hard-earned money on it, but who knows? Crazy things have happened.
Can I give you my favorite one?
Yeah, hit me.
It's Air Force.
I saw you had Air Force on this list. I please explain.
Troy Calhoun, friend of the pod, one of the best college football coaches as a whole. He's going into year 17 with the Falcons. So shout out to him. 9-4 last year. But here's the thing, Matt Greer, when you go through just his career at Air Force, the man wins all the time. And you're looking for like the G5 team who could sneak in here. Who's the G5 team that could make a run? They went 10-3 in 2022, 10-3 in 2021. You throw COVID out, they were 11-2 and 7-1 in the Midwest, in the Mountain West in 2019. They're flirting with perfection. They won, I think, 8 straight before they had just a rough ending to last year. And I think they were really doing well as a whole. Air Force is going to hang around. Air Force is going to be the G5 team that, like, let's put the triple option in the college football playoff. I want a team to sweat having a full strength Air Force team as the G5 team. You have to go to Air Force.
The equivalent of playing like against the Princeton offense or something.
Yes,
I
want tournament. Air Force to get like Ohio State, who didn't win the Big Ten, to have to go to Air Force for their first playoff game. And just what that's going to have to look like. I think it obviously be snowing, it'll be cold, and triple option football. Air Force is who America should be rooting for to host a playoff game early on, because I want them to get one. Like Ole Miss has to go to Air Force or something to keep their, like, that's what I want. And Air Force, I think, is going to win a bunch of games. Again, that's what they do. They can hang around. Air Force, like, Troy Calhoun, man, I would not be surprised if he finds his way into the college football playoff before it's all said and done. It's gonna be hard but look, it's not like you have to be perfect to get into the playoff as a G5 team. You just have to be the highest ranked conference champion, and Air Force can drop a game. Like, they could still run the conference gauntlet. You get Oregon State at home. You get Navy at home. You got to go to Wyoming. That'll be a little bit tough. Baylor, not very good. I think they can handle that. San Jose State, new coach at home. I like this schedule for the Falcons. Give me some Air Force, man. I'm going to be extremely invested in my Air Force Falcons making the college football playoff this year.
I love it, man. I'll take your word for it on the Air Force Falcons. It's funny that neither of us mentioned, kind of the OG here, which is the Boise State Broncos. Like, Boise State's the team. They paved the way for anyone even considering giving the G5 a shot. So, they could easily win the Mountain West and creep into that top 25 and be the highest G5.
It's a different era, man. I need to see it to believe it. The Boise Bronco Blue, it's not as prestigious as it once was. They're struggling as of late, last couple of years. I don't know, man.
No, they're definitely not what they once were.
I want Hawaii in there. That'd be fun. But I don't think so. I don't think Hawaii's going to be right there in the Mountain West this year.
But yeah, I mean, there's a few more of those. One of those, I think that's all of those teams. If you're given like a probability, of just right now, I think all of those, Liberty, Tulane, James Madison, I think all of those teams have like a higher probability than the Missouris, than the Tennessees, than the USCs of the world.
You think they have a higher probability?
Yeah, because one of them is gonna go. Like, they just have to win their weaker conference and go 10-2 or 11-1, maybe even undefeated What did Liberty go last year? 12-1.
They went undefeated until they lost to Oregon.
So yeah, I mean, undefeated Liberty's in. Like, you telling me Liberty is half as good as Tennessee was last year? Like, probably not. Like, but they don't have to be. They just have to win their conference. And
I mean, they had to go undefeated. What I'm saying is, like, there's just the margin for being
Tennessee last year 9-4. Give me Joe Milton, Tennessee versus that Liberty team.
Oh, they would have won. Tennessee would have won handedly.
That's what I'm saying. So they don't have to be better than Tennessee. This is the formula. And if the Dukes of James Madison go 12-0 and win the Sun Belt, like, they're getting in the playoff over Missouri, like going 9-3 or something. You know what I mean? They're not even getting compared to Missouri because they're automatically in. So I just think in terms of probability, one of those, and I don't know which one is going to be, you know, obviously Liberty's head coach is at Indiana now, right?
Yes, Kirk Cignetti.
Yeah, so I mean, Liberty's obviously been good under multiple coaches. Like, maybe Tulane is back up there.
Well, Caden Salter's back at Liberty, so that was a big one where it was like they wondered if he was going to enter the portal and move on to a P5, and he's back. So I think Liberty should be good again. I think that's a good call. And Jimmy Chadwell, friend of the program, fantastic coach. So he's going to win a lot of games there.
But I want to discuss one that you have on your list that you have not discussed yet, and neither of us talked about Kansas State also in the Big 12, kind of that same reason of Utah. Is this a brain fart here on your part? Why is SMU on your list? They're in the ACC now, right?
Yeah,
they're not winning the ACC. They're not going to compete in the ACC.
I wouldn't be surprised. Rhett Lashley's a good coach, man. They have talent. They're the boosters and everything else. SMU is going to be good. Like, SMU has a great quarterback.
What have they been doing in the AAC?
It doesn't. What do you mean? I think. Hold on. Let me pull up the records. SMU is absolutely a dark horse. But Preston Stone is a dude.
11-3 last year. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll bite my tongue on that one. But
SMU's good. Like, I would not be surprised if SMU found their way in.
Oh man, I would be shocked if they were. They would be a perfect candidate if they were still in the AAC. But I think going to the ACC, that I don't know. I'm not picking SMU next year.
I mean, they get Florida State at home, noted ACC rivals, SMU and Florida State.
7-6 in 2022. What is it? This team's not competing for an ACC title. You
Preston Stone's a dude, man. Like, their offense is gonna be really good again. I think they're gonna win double-digit games or come close to it.
Double-digit games in the ACC?
What world are you living in with the ACC? They get Cal. They get Boston College. They get Pitt at home. Virginia. What do you mean? BYU at home, Florida State at home. They got to go to Louisville, but like, it's not a bad schedule. Like, that's a 9-3, 10-2 schedule for SMU. They got talent.
Interesting.
SMU's gonna be good.
We shall see, sir. I don't know. I'm not
disrespecting the Stangs.
I'm not drinking the Stang Kool-Aid like you are over there.
Stangs can do it. Rhett Lashley's a good coach, man, and they've got a great quarterback, and I think they're gonna be fine. I would buy some Stang stock right now.
Buy some Stang stock, he says. Who's HCU they got on the schedule there? I'm not even sure what.
Is that the one who made the tournament? It's the one, yeah, Houston. Oh, Houston Christian Huskies.
Okay,
I've never heard of them.
No, I've never heard of that school. So they got that. They got a win there. They should have a win on August 31st.
There you go. Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green. That was fun. I think there's going to be a lot of new faces. I think it's going to be interesting to see which teams ultimately find their way in. It's good to know that you really can't quit Penn State after quitting them for a month. You're all the way back in. A tradition unlike any other. So we got that to look forward to this fall, folks. Matt Green picking Penn State week over week and getting his Nittany Lions to make the college football playoff for the first time in the college football playoff era. Matt Green,
how dare you, sir? Hold on. Let me get some dog bites in here, right here at the end here. Like you said, some good news and some bad news on the recruiting trail this weekend. Let's start with the bad news. First, Justice Terry, 5-star defensive lineman, committed to Georgia, flips to USC. And then you got another one, Isaiah Gibson out of Warner Robins. Is he a 5-star, I believe, as well? I think two of the top 5 players in the state of Georgia. He commits to USC. So big day. Obviously, Juju Lewis out of the state of Georgia, out of Carrollton, is already committed to USC. So we've seen some guys. We've seen Michael Williams commit to USC and come on back home. We've seen Jarvis Jones. He went to USC, came on back home, became a damn good dog. So who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Bear Alexander, another one, went from Georgia to USC. But I guess JT Daniels, USC to Georgia. A lot of moving parts there. So that's the bad news. Georgia missing out on a couple guys. But the good news, class of 2026, rising junior, Jared Curtis, number 1 quarterback, number 1 ranked player in the country by some, out of Nashville, commits to the Bulldogs. So that's a big time commit for Georgia. Fun fact for you, that is now the, well, if he signs, I should say, because this list goes even higher. He would be the 5th 5-star quarterback that would be on Georgia's roster under Kirby Smart. I'm not even counting Dylan Raiola, that was once committed as a 5-star, but those other 4, Jacob Eason, Justin Fields, JT Daniels, Brock Vandegrift, started a total of 20 career games at Georgia. So being a 5-star and going to Georgia, not necessarily, guaranteed of success. You saw Fromm, 43 starts, Stetson, 31 starts, Carson Beck, if he plays the whole season, he'll get to around 30 starts. So the 5-stars haven't necessarily been guaranteed playing time, but as in any position, Kirby Smart gets elite players, and that's going to continue. Hopefully Georgia can keep him committed all the way to 2026. Who knows? He might end up commit to 2 different schools by then, with the crazy nature of high school recruiting these days. But yeah, big active recruiting weekend for the Bulldogs.
There you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I will talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.